Carrie sat on the edge of the motel bed, the springs creaking faintly as she leaned forward to check her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen, her mind racing as she read the last text from Zach. She wasn't nervous. No, this wasn't guilt. It was anticipation, excitement. She was about to take control of her life, about to finally escape the suffocating monotony that had been killing her little by little. Her husband, Ted, had long ago become a prison warden rather than a partner. Dinner was a rotation of the same 7 meals. Sex was scheduled for Wednesday nights at precisely 9 p.m., and their lives were dictated by spreadsheets and to-do lists. Even his kids from his first marriage, felt like just another checkmark in his carefully ordered life. She loved them, but they weren't hers, and she wasn't cut out for the role of their stepmother anymore. Her phone buzzed, startling her. She picked it up quickly, her lips curving into a smile as she read the message. "You're really going to do it, right? Leave him for me?" Carrie's heart fluttered. She typed quickly, her fingers tapping the screen with a confidence she didn't have even a few weeks ago. "Yes, I'm done with him. I want you." She leaned back on the bed, her hand brushing the cheap polyester bedspread. The room wasn't glamorous, it was far from it, with its faded wallpaper and faint smell of mildew, but it was a symbol. It was freedom. Her phone buzzed again. "Even the kids? You're really leaving everything?" Her fingers hesitated. She loved the kids, she did, but they weren't enough to keep her tethered to that life. They weren't hers anyway, and staying wasn't fair to anyone. Not to them, not to Ted, and certainly not to herself. "Yes, I can't live like this anymore," she typed. Her pulse quickened as she hit send. The weight that had been pressing on her chest for years felt lighter. Another buzz. "Good. You deserve to be happy." She smiled. "Yes, I do." The minutes stretched on, her anticipation building with every second. She opened the bottle of wine she'd brought, pouring herself a glass and sipping it slowly. The warmth spread through her, calming her nerves. Her phone lit up again. "Get the jacuzzi going. I've got a surprise for you." She chuckled, setting her glass down as she walked over to the small jacuzzi in the corner of the room. She turned the dial and the water bubbled to life, steam rising into the air. She stripped off her clothes without hesitation and began to neatly fold them before pausing and dramatically letting them fall to the floor in a pile. That way of thinking was over. She stepped into the warm water, sinking with a sigh as the jets massaged her back. Glass in one hand and phone in the other, she let herself relax for the first time in what felt like years. Her phone buzzed again. "Almost there. You're beautiful. You know that?" She smiled, taking another sip of wine as the weed she'd been smoking earlier dulled the edges of her thoughts. "Hurry up. I'm waiting." The anticipation was electric, coursing through her body in waves. She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining Zach walking through that door, his hands on her, his lips against hers. The low hum of the jacuzzi bubbled around Carrie as she leaned back. The warm water lapped at her bare skin, and the heady aroma of weed swirled in the air. She took another slow pull from the bowl, exhaling a cloud that weaved into the steam rising from the tub. The click of the door unlocking sent a thrill through her. Her heart raced as the figure stepped inside, casting a tall, sexy shadow against the seedy motel walls. "Hey, baby," Carrie smiled, leaning against the edge of the jacuzzi. The steam curled around her like an embrace. "Took you long enough?" Zach's grin widened as he took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "You ready for that surprise?" She motioned for him with her finger. "I'm ready. Come here." This was real, and nothing else mattered anymore. The steam thickened around them as Zach stepped closer, his dark eyes gleaming. Carrie's smile deepened, her anticipation swelling as she watched him move toward her. This was her moment, and she was ready for whatever came next. Zach's grin was full of mischief, his dark eyes drinking her in. He closed the door behind him, peeling off his jacket with a practiced flair. "You look even better than I imagined." Carrie smirked, her confidence buoyed by the wine and the excitement of the moment. She sat up a little, letting the water cascade down her shoulders. "You're late. Had to make sure my surprise was worth it." "Well," she teased, swirling the wine in her glass, "I hope it is because I don't do second chances." Zach chuckled, the sound deep and rich. He began unbuttoning his shirt, his gaze never leaving hers as he undressed. He slid into the jacuzzi beside her. Carrie's pulse was pounding, The water splashed as he pulled her into his lap, his arms wrapping around her waist. So, his breath was warm against her neck. You really gonna leave him for me? For good? Carrie tilted her head back to look at him, rolling her eyes playfully. We're really doing this again? I just want to be sure. His grin widened. You're leaving your husband and your kids for me, right? Stepkids, Carrie corrected, taking another sip of wine. They didn't come from me, and yes, I already told you. Zach's fingers trailed along her spine beneath the water, sending a shiver through her. I don't know. Feels like you might have second thoughts. Maybe you're not as serious about us as I am. You still have time to back out and go home to your husband and children, if you so choose. Oh, Zach, how many times do I have to say it? I'm done with Ted and his schedules. I'm done with Sunday meatloaf and sex on rotation and everything in between. I'm ready for something real, something exciting. And you don't feel bad about leaving the kids? Zach pressed, his tone still, overtly teasing but persistent. Carrie set her wine glass on the edge of the tub, her annoyance bubbling beneath the surface. I love those kids. I do, but they're not mine. They're anchors, and I've been drowning for years. Zach tilted his head, studying her as if weighing her words. So you're not looking back? I'm not. I've made my decision. I'm here, aren't I? He laughed, reaching for her wine and taking a sip. Fair enough, you've convinced me. Your choice has been made. Carrie grabbed the bowl from the edge of the tub and took another hit, her nerves steadying with the familiar haze. She passed it to Zach, who accepted it with a devilish grin. So, she bit her lip and smiled, changing the subject. This surprise of yours, care to share what it is? Or are you going to keep me wondering all night? Zach leaned closer, his lips brushing her ear. You'll know soon enough. Let's just say it'll blow your mind. Carrie laughed, the sound light and genuine. You're such a tease. The water rippled as they kissed, bodies pressed close, steam wrapping around them like a shroud. Heat radiated between them, the rising mist thickening the air with each passing second. Her phone buzzed on the tub's edge, the sound muffled but insistent. Carrie ignored it, her fingers curling into his damp shoulders, lost in the moment. The second buzz broke through her haze. She hesitated, then glanced over. The illuminated screen read, Zach has sent a message. She laughed softly. That's weird. She leaned over to grab it. Her thumb swiped the screen. A message from Zach stared back at her. She read it aloud with a chuckle. Got tied up. Wife gave me hell about working late. Should be there in 25. Can't wait to see you. She blinked at the text, then turned to him with a quizzical smile. How are you doing that? Some kind of text app? Before he could answer, another buzz, another message. Her eyes flicked to the screen and back to him. Her breath stopped. Zach's grin stretched wider, splitting his face unnaturally, impossibly. His teeth gleamed, too many, too sharp, their edges catching the dim light. Carrie, his nose wrinkled. You're a lying, cheating whore. Her scream lasted about half a second, then stopped abruptly as he bit out her throat. Zach stood outside the door, his phone glowing faintly in his hand. The message on the screen felt electric, charged with promises that made his pulse quicken. Come in, my taboo lover. He smirked. She always knew how to turn him on, even with just a few words in a text message. That was evident by the boner his phone brushed against as slid it into his pocket. Tonight wasn't just another rendezvous. Tonight was their first step toward a future together. He reached for the door handle, the cool metal grounding. The door creaked, revealing the dimly lit room. Steam swirled lazily in the air, the faint scent of weed dancing with the hot tub smells radiating from the jacuzzi. The glow of the candles was soft, almost dreamlike, casting shimmering patterns across the water's surface. Carrie sat in the tub, her head tilted back, her skin glistening with a mix of water and wine droplets. She looked like a vision, her damp hair framing her face in loose waves. A wine glass dangled casually from her hand, and the faint red lipstick smudged its rim. Hey, a seductive smile played on her lips. Hey, yourself. Zach stepped inside and let the door close behind him. His gaze lingered on her, his breath catching. You look incredible. Carrie let out a soft laugh, swirling the wine in her glass. You're late. She licked her lips and teased him, her tone light but pointed. Zach shrugged off his jacket and tossed it onto the nearby chair. Had to make sure everything was perfect for us. She raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in her eye. Perfect, huh? Well, I hope it was worth the wait. He crossed the room, crouching beside the tub. The warmth of the water rose to meet him, mist curling around his face as he reached out to tuck a damp strand of hair behind her ear. Every second, he said, his voice soft but firm. Carrie's lips curled into a mischievous smile. So, are you really gonna leave her for me? Zach hesitated just for a moment before nodding. I told you, Carrie, I'm done with her, with all of it. I want you. Only you. Her gaze lingered on his face, searching for something. After a moment, she leaned back, her expression softening. Good, come here. She beckoned him with a finger. I have a big surprise for you.